What is hidden is not forgotten, it's sacred. There comes a moment in your journey when you begin to feel the stirring beneath the surface, like something ancient inside you is waking up, not with noise but with knowing. If you've ever wondered why you felt invisible, like your gifts were unseen, your voice overlooked, your timing delayed, this message is for you. You weren't being ignored, you were being hidden. And that's a very different story. You are not ordinary, you are not random. You are not behind, you are chosen. And chosen ones don't arrive like everyone else. They are revealed when the time is right. So what happens when the veil starts to lift? What does it mean when the fog you've been walking through starts to clear? This isn't just coincidence. This is sacred alignment. This is the moment the ones who were buried begin to rise, not because they need attention, but because they've become undeniable. What you carry inside of you has always been too weighty to be rushed into the light. And now, after years of being refined in silence, you're being called forward, not to impress, but to impact. Not to prove, but to walk in purpose. You may not know it yet, but you're stepping into a season of visibility, not the kind that comes from vanity or striving, but the kind that flows from alignment, depth, and divine preparation. You're not just showing up differently. You've become different, and this message, this video is going to explain why the hiding was necessary, why it hurt, why it lasted so long, and why it's finally over. Before we dive deep, if this resonates with your spirit, leave 77 in the comments below, not just as a number, but as a declaration. 7 is the number of spiritual completion and divine perfection, and repeating it is a signal that you recognize your awakening, that you're not just listening, you're aligning. Also, if this message speaks to your heart, consider clicking the super thanks button. Supporting this work isn't just about a donation. It's a spiritual exchange, a way of saying, I recognize the sacred in this and I stand with it. In the next few chapters, we'll unpack the truth behind divine hiding. We'll explore the spiritual weight of silence, the ache of isolation, and the power that's formed in places no one else sees. And more importantly, we'll talk about why now, after all this time, God is bringing you into the light. Why chosen ones are always hidden first. A seed never starts on the surface. It's buried, covered, hidden in the dark. But in that unseen place, something miraculous happens. It begins to grow, not because it's visible, but because it was placed in the right environment to become what it was meant to be. If you've ever felt like life kept you in the shadows, like doors wouldn't open no matter how hard you knocked, like people couldn't see your value, this isn't evidence that something is wrong with you. It's evidence that something sacred is being developed within you. Chosen ones are never rushed into the spotlight. They are protected in obscurity. Why? Because what they carry is not ordinary. Their calling isn't built for temporary applause. It's meant to shift atmospheres and transform lives. And you cannot be trusted with that kind of assignment without first being built in the dark. Being hidden doesn't feel holy. It feels heavy. You feel unseen, unheard, uninvited. You watch others rise while you sit still. You pray and don't hear back. You serve and receive no recognition. You wonder if maybe you got it wrong, if maybe you're not as chosen as you thought. But let me tell you the truth that most people won't say out loud. God's silence is often the sound of construction. When he hides you, he's not punishing you, he's preparing you. You weren't being overlooked, you were being overbuilt. God doesn't develop chosen ones in crowds, he builds them in caves. He sharpens them in solitude, because only there, away from distraction, away from applause, can your identity be anchored in something unshakable. In the hidden place, your character is tested, your ego is dismantled, your motives are purified. You learn to obey without feedback, to show up without being seen, to serve without needing validation. And that kind of obedience creates a foundation that no platform, no praise, no promotion can shake. That's why you were hidden first. Not because you weren't ready to be seen, but because you were being shaped to survive what visibility demands. Don't resent the hiding. It was never about rejection. It was always about protection. The world couldn't see you because you weren't being shaped for the world's approval. You were being shaped for heaven's assignment. And here's the thing, when it's time for a seed to break the soil, it doesn't ask permission. It just rises. So if you feel the pressure shifting, the light breaking through the cracks, if you feel something stirring even though nothing has changed around you, that's not your imagination. That's your season changing. The hidden ones are awakening, and you are one of them. The sacred silence, where destiny is forged. Silence is not the absence of movement. It's the sound of destiny being forged beneath the surface. We live in a world obsessed with noise, likes, comments, applause, acknowledgement. But the most powerful transformations never happen in the spotlight. They happen in the quiet, in the private conversations with God that no one else hears, in the moments when your tears speak louder than your words, in the stillness where your soul wrestles with doubt, fear, and hope, and refuses to give up. If you've been in a season where heaven feels quiet, where your prayers echo back to you, where your dreams seem further away than ever, that silence wasn't empty, it was sacred. It was where God was doing his deepest work. Diamonds don't form in daylight. They form under pressure, in darkness, in heat. Roots don't stretch wide under the sun. They go deep in silence, underground, where no one can see. And the deeper the root, the stronger the tree. The longer the formation, the greater the endurance. The silence you've endured wasn't a void. It was a forge. A holy fire where your character was strengthened, your vision purified, your spirit anchored. It's where you learn to hear God without noise, to feel him without proof, to trust without visibility. And that's what separates the chosen from the called. Anyone can stand tall when they're being celebrated, but chosen ones are built to stand even when no one claps, even when the room is empty, even when the path is unclear, because they were built in silence. So if you're still in that quiet season, don't despise it. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it strengthen you. Don't rush your reveal. You're not being stalled. You're being calibrated. You're not falling behind. You're being equipped. This isn't the end of your story. It's the foundation of it. Look back for a moment. Think of who you were when the silence began and who you are now. You've changed, quietly, powerfully, spiritually. You may not even recognize your old self. And that's proof the silence was working even when you couldn't feel it. Because in the hidden place, you weren't just surviving. You were becoming. Divine isolation, why you had to walk alone. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being unloved. It comes from being set apart. It's not rejection, it's refinement. And if you've ever felt like you were walking a path no one around you could understand, that's not a sign you were off course. That was divine isolation. You weren't abandoned. You were being drawn closer to the voice that truly mattered. You may have noticed how certain friendships just faded, how people you once trusted drifted away, or how conversations started feeling hollow. Even family, the ones who were supposed to know you best, may have looked at you with confusion or quiet disapproval. And in that silence, it felt like something was breaking. But what if I told you it wasn't just things breaking apart? It was heaven pulling things back so you wouldn't build your future on unsteady ground. God will often clear the room before he speaks. He'll let people exit before he reveals the next chapter. Why? Because not everyone is meant to walk with you into the sacred. Not everyone is equipped to witness the unfolding of divine assignments. The ones who left weren't strong enough to stay through the transformation, and they weren't supposed to, because some parts of your becoming needed solitude. There is a silence that only comes when your soul is no longer tethered to validation. And that's where you learn the most, when the applause disappears, when the audience leaves, when the phone stops ringing. That's when your spirit starts listening to a deeper frequency. Not the noise of expectation, but the still voice of God calling you to go further than comfort would ever allow. Chosen ones don't get to blend in. Your path will always feel a little different, a little lonelier, but not because you're less, because you're carrying more. You've probably noticed it your whole life, people saying you're too intense, too deep, too sensitive, or too different. But it wasn't too much. It was just too sacred for the shallow. Divine isolation isn't about loneliness. It's about purification. God needed to remove the voices that were shaping you incorrectly. He needed you to stop depending on people's opinions before you could hear His truth clearly. Because what's coming next isn't built on popularity, it's built on obedience. And obedience often starts in isolation. You had to walk alone so you would stop waiting for someone else to confirm what God already whispered. You had to feel that ache of separation so you could be reminded that you belong to something bigger than a friend group, a platform, or a crowd. You belong to a kingdom. Look back at your journey. Remember those nights you cried without knowing why, those mornings you woke up with a heaviness you couldn't explain. That wasn't depression, that was detachment. Your spirit was shedding attachments to the world it was never meant to conform to. You were being cleansed of codependency on people, applause, and shallow comfort. And maybe the hardest part was not being able to explain it to anyone. How could you? How do you explain to someone that your soul is being renovated by God Himself? That you're grieving people who are still alive because you outgrew the version of yourself that once needed them? That you've learned to love people from a distance, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity? You're not alone because you're unworthy. You're alone because you've become too valuable to be contaminated by casualness. God has been preserving the oil in your life by limiting who can touch it. Divine isolation isn't punishment. It's proof of preparation. So if you're still walking alone, keep walking. That path is sacred. That silence is holy. That ache in your chest, it's your soul expanding to fit the assignment you didn't know you were carrying. You're not being left behind. You're being lifted higher. The turning point, how you know the hidden season is ending. There's a moment in every hidden season when the stillness begins to shift. It's subtle at first, a whisper in your spirit, a new clarity in your thoughts. The weight doesn't feel as heavy. The fog doesn't seem as thick. Something is moving inside you, around you, and though you can't explain it, you know the season is changing. You start to feel a deep inner calm, not because everything around you is perfect, but because something within you has been completed. The striving slows, the need to be seen dissolves, and in its place there's peace, a knowing that you're ready even if no one else has said it yet. That's the turning point, when your identity no longer depends on how loud the room claps, but on how aligned your spirit feels. You start waking up differently. Dreams come more vividly. Conversations carry more depth. Synchronicities increase. People you haven't talked to in years suddenly reach out. Opportunities you didn't chase begin showing up. Your discernment sharpens. You walk into a space and instantly feel what's off. Your boundaries become clearer, but you don't need to announce them. Your silence begins to speak louder than your words ever did. You are no longer reacting, you're responding. From wisdom, from patience, from power. This is not coincidence. This is alignment reaching the surface. This is spiritual calibration manifesting in physical form. This is what it feels like when God starts opening doors you didn't even know existed, because now you're ready to walk through them without needing a map or a crowd. You might find yourself drawn to nature more, to solitude, to prayer, not because you're escaping, but because you're returning to yourself, your center, your source. The noise that once tempted you now feels distracting. The relationships that once drained you now feel foreign. You're not broken, you're being elevated. Chosen ones know this moment. The moment when everything external still looks the same, but the internal world is unrecognizable. When you're no longer praying for things to come, but thanking God that you survived what didn't. So how do you know the hidden season is ending? You feel it in your bones. Your hunger has changed. Your posture has changed. You're no longer desperate for recognition. You're available for assignment. And heaven recognizes that. You're not being forgotten, you're being released. Not into chaos, but into calling. Not with noise, but with authority. The shift has started, and this time nothing and no one can delay what God has aligned. The reveal, you're not being discovered, you're being deployed. Let's be clear, this next season of your life isn't about being discovered. It's about being deployed. You are not a talent waiting to be noticed. You are a vessel being sent. What God has built inside you wasn't crafted for stage lights or shallow fame. It was formed for impact, quiet, undeniable, irreversible impact. And now, after seasons of silence, pruning, and divine construction, the time has come, not for you to be celebrated, but for you to be activated. You are not the same person who entered the hidden season. You've been refined, softened in spirit, sharpened in discernment, steadied in identity. You don't walk like someone seeking approval anymore. You walk like someone who already knows they've been approved by heaven, and the people around you, they're beginning to notice. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it. The way your energy enters a room differently. The way your presence brings peace without trying. The way your eyes no longer search, they see. That's the sign of alignment. You're not forcing open doors. You're recognizing the ones that were always yours. You're not pushing to be seen. You've become the kind of presence that draws clarity just by standing still. Because when God deploys someone, He doesn't need them to be loud. He needs them to be ready. And you are. This deployment doesn't require explanation. You don't need to rehearse your story, justify your silence, or overcompensate for your absence. The fruit will speak for itself. Your resilience will speak. Your peace will speak. Your wisdom, your calm, your grace, they are the credentials of someone who was trained by obedience, not applause. So no, you're not being discovered. Discovery implies surprise. Deployment implies purpose. You were always meant to arrive here, just not through the usual path. You've been shaped by a different set of hands, called by a different voice, and sent for a different reason. And now the moment has come, not to chase destiny, but to walk in it, unapologetically, humbly, powerfully. This is not your breakthrough, it's your emergence. Welcome to your reveal. This time you don't need to prove anything. You've spent so much of your life trying to prove your worth, trying to explain your heart, justify your path, earn a seat at tables you never truly fit at. But now that urgency is gone, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally remembered who you are. True self-recognition isn't loud. It doesn't need a stage or a stamp of approval. It's quiet, steady, internal. It's the kind of knowing that doesn't flinch when misunderstood, that no longer fights for validation because it's been built on divine revelation. And you, beloved, are there now. What once would have shattered you now humbles you. What once would have triggered you now teaches you. You're not who you were when this journey began. You no longer confuse attention with affirmation. You no longer confuse noise with significance. Your spirit has been rewired to respond from truth, not trauma. And in this new season, the most powerful part of you is your peace. Because peace is what people can't fake. Peace is what people can't argue with. You're not performing anymore. You're not seeking to be liked, selected, or applauded. You're not trying to be invited in. You are already sent. You don't have to prove anything. You've already been proven. By the fire you endured. By the silence you survived. By the prayers you whispered when no one was listening but heaven. By the choices you made when quitting seemed easier. That kind of evidence doesn't need a resume. It radiates through presence. And now, you're beginning to see it. The people who once overlooked you now pause. The rooms you once tiptoed into now welcome you differently. Not because you changed the way you speak, but because you stopped trying to explain yourself to those who were never assigned to understand you. There's a different energy around someone who knows they are chosen. They walk slower, breathe deeper, speak less. And when they speak, it's with substance. Because they're no longer trying to be impressive. They're trying to be obedient. Let me speak to that place in you that still wants to prove something. That small ache in your chest that wonders. Do they see me now? Listen closely. You are not here to convince anyone of your value. You are not here to chase relevance. You are here to carry presence. to host the weight of what God has placed in you, and that alone is enough. You weren't built for approval. You were built for assignment. You weren't formed in the dark just to shine. You were formed to serve. And the right people, those with eyes to see, will recognize what you carry without needing a performance. So breathe. Release the urge to explain. Let go of the hunger to be seen. Because now you see yourself. And in the end, that's what matters most. Your presence is the message now. You used to think you had to say something powerful to be respected. You used to think you had to post more, speak louder, hustle harder just to be noticed. But now something has shifted. You've realized that your energy speaks before your mouth ever opens. You've discovered that your presence, your stillness, your alignment, your peace is the message. You are no longer striving to prove what God already made undeniable. You walk into a room and the atmosphere bends, not because you demand it, but because your soul is aligned with something greater. You've become magnetic, not through marketing, but through authenticity. People can feel when someone has been with God. People can sense when someone has paid the price for their clarity, and you have. You've become fluent in the language of silence. You don't need to debate to be heard. You don't need to defend your path to be understood. The right ones will feel your truth before you even speak it. Because true resonance is spiritual, not intellectual. It's frequency, not logic. And here's the truth. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more alignment, more presence, more people who are so deeply rooted in who they are that they don't need to shout their worth. And that's who you are now. You are the message that can't be reduced to a caption. You are the sentence that doesn't need punctuation. You are the poem that God has been writing in secret, and now He's letting the world read it one moment at a time. You used to worry about being understood. Now you're anchored in being real. You used to chase opportunities. Now you recognize the ones assigned to your anointing. You used to crave connection. Now you embody it, quietly, naturally, authentically. This kind of presence isn't taught, it's formed. In the fire, in the nights of silence, in the mornings where you showed up even when no one saw, in the prayers where you didn't get answers but you stayed faithful anyway. That is what's radiating from you now, and people feel it. They may not know what to call it. They may try to label it confidence or charisma, but deep down they're sensing what it truly is, God's hand. His fingerprint etched on your soul, His breath in your lungs, His fire in your words, even when you say nothing. So don't dim, don't shrink, don't second-guess what's been revealed in you through years of refinement. You don't need to be louder, you just need to keep walking in your truth, because your presence is the message now, and it's already speaking. This is your rising season. You didn't come out of hiding to chase noise. You didn't walk through fire just to be seen. You returned from the silence carrying something sacred, something rooted, something steady, something eternal. This is not your highlight reel. This is your harvest. Every quiet prayer, every lonely night, every invisible act of obedience, they were not wasted. They were planting something the world couldn't see, and now the bloom is undeniable. You are not here to be flashy. You are here to be faithful. You are not stepping forward to be celebrated. You are stepping forward to be released. Because what's inside of you isn't just a story, it's a signal. A signal to those who are still hidden. A signal to those still questioning their worth. You are walking proof that the silence was sacred, that delay wasn't denial, that isolation was actually insulation, that God's timing is still perfect, even when it feels painful. This time, it's not about rising fast. It's about rising true, with roots deep enough to withstand the winds, with peace strong enough to resist the pressure, with purpose clear enough to silence the noise. So as you step into this new season, this rising season, remember, you are already crowned, you are already chosen, and everything ahead of you has been aligned for your arrival. If this message has echoed something deep in your spirit, I invite you to leave 77 in the comments below, not as a trend, but as a testimony, as a way of declaring that you recognize what God is doing in you and through you. And if you'd like to support this sacred work, please consider clicking the Super Thanks button below. Every seed you sow helps spread this message to more hearts who are waiting to hear they're not alone. This is not the end. It's the beginning of something holy. So continue your awakening journey by watching the next message that resonates with your soul, especially if you've ever felt misunderstood, unheard, or unseen, because your silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. Now let the world feel what God has formed in you.